we would like to do is to, if you can, if it's just put on mute, and Yogan Bhai, as if we ask everyone to be in mute, and let's begin with Namo Ka Mantra.
Great, Jain, everybody. Let's start. Close your eyes, please. Keep your back straight, relax. A nice smile on everybody's face, please. Let's take a nice deep breath. Inhale. Hold, hold, and slowly exhale. Nice long exhale. Wonderful. Let's together do Namo Ka Mantra, and be sure to think about the meaning as we're doing this. Always good to do things mindfully. Om Namo Arihantanam. Om Namo Siddhanam. Om Namo Ariyanam. Om Namo Vachayanam. Om Namo Loe Savasana. Eso Panch Namo Sabba Pava Panashino. Mangala Savisam. Paramam Hoy. Om Shanti.
Great. Thank you so much. So actually, I want to begin with just a quick round of introductions. We have lots of folks who are from various parts of India, and बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो जैन धर्म में बहुत काफी काम करा हुआ है as well. And then also we would like to then hear about your Jain journey as well. So maybe we will begin one by one. Maybe Shugan Uncle, share your background with the group so that everyone can hear. We have a small enough group so we can have a good conversation. You have to unmute, sorry, Uncle, you have to unmute. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a very senior person. In India, they call us seniors, super senior citizen. Okay. And professionally, I'm an IT engineer. I spent my whole professional life working on information technology applications in business industry. And I did it all over the world, USA, Holland, and India. Then in 2001, I sold my software business and I dedicated myself to Jain studies, both studies and practice. And so I went to school, got my MA and PhD degree in Jain philosophy, and set up this ISJS to share my whatever I learned and whatever I experienced with the scholars in America primarily, so that they can teach. Our idea was to teach the trainers, not the students, because that we felt it will be more cost effective. And since then I'm doing that. Now 2 years ago I said, now this thing has been set up, but I can't handle it anymore, the expansion. So we gave lock, stock and barrel this whole thing to Amar Prerna Trust in Pune. And this is a multi-billion dollar foundation with the owner also himself a dedicated Jain. And now
one second, I'm just going to ask people to mute. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so that's about me. Now I live alone. My children are all over the world. So I'm trying to live as a householder, but as a sadhu also.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll go through quickly. Pallavi. You unmute and go ahead and introduce yourself. Yeah, go ahead, unmute. Yeah.
Yeah, now I can.
Yes.
Sabko mera Jai Jinendra. In my daily life, I'm a civil servant, and I'm posted in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. I'm in the IAS, and currently I'm looking after the tribal affairs in the state. But I belong to Western UP and Delhi. Since I was a child, my earliest memories are now that Acharya Shri has passed away, but he's Vidyanand Ji Maharaj. He has been the biggest inspiration in our lives. And my mother was the president of the Digambar Jain Samaj in East Delhi, in Rishabh Bihar. So there has been and my father was in the United Nations, so my early education was all over the world. But one thing which was constant is the talk about the Jain philosophy, the Jain way of life at home. And it was a very sort of a matter of pride for us that we have always been able to grow up in those values. And those are things which I've tried to also impart to my work.
Great.
So I think the Jain thought itself gives a lot of strength and mindfulness to one's own work in life. And that's it. And today I'm just here to reinforce and learn from all the wonderful people who I meet over here. Thank you.
And you'll make many great partners in that journey as well. So Rishabh Mehta, please, if you can unmute and introduce yourself as well. We'd love to hear from you. And
hi,
please. Yes.
I'm Rishabh. I'm a jeweler by profession. We've been in Pune. We basically are from Indore. पूना में हैं, बचपन से जैन घर में पैदा हुए हैं. कहानियों के माध्यम से हमें जैनिज्म समझाया गया है, and that has been my founding way of learning what Jainism is all about. So I think that's a very good way of letting the youngsters know about Jainism. And if I could, I would like to contribute in the same.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sanjeev ji, please unmute and introduce yourself.
Hello, Jai Jinendra. I am architect Sanjeev Bam. I am based at Indore, and by profession I am a practicing architect here in Indore. और Jainism के बारे में actually क्या है कि what we hear from our acharyas or gurus, that is one thing, but I want to learn what new means the way of Jainism, what you people are going to tell. So that's what interests me to join this group.
Great, great. And Sahil, please introduce. You can unmute. You have to unmute.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. This is Sahil Mehta. I live in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Been born and raised in a Jain family. And up until a few years ago, I had the pleasure of reading Jain Way of Life that really opened my eyes to the way of living rather than the rituals, which is what I was only exposed to prior to that, or not only, but that was the focus. And that has really helped to transform me and allowed me to become my authentic true self, and also given me the strength to write a book. I wrote a book called Break Free, A Guide to Decluttering Your Life. And I continue to write and speak and do workshops. And a lot of my principles that I share and all the achievements that I have since then have been very much linked to the 3 A's, our 3 pillars of Jainism. So I'm very grateful to that. And I'm always looking at how to continue learning, which is why I'm part of this group and really blessed to be with all of you.
Great. Wonderful. And Seema Oswal, please unmute and share with us your background.
Yeah, Jai Jinain to all. I am a special educator and a child consultant by profession. Growing up in a very, very religious family, I had all the values of Jainism, but Yidil Mange more every time that I find out ways to reinvent myself. I never miss the opportunity. I always want to move ahead in this path. And I'm so grateful I got this opportunity. Thank you so much, one and all.
Great. And I think, is it Vitika Barjatia? Vitika, you there? Turvi? Okay, so let's go to Mahendra ji. If you would unmute yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, is that Yeah. So Mahenji, go ahead. And then I'm going to come to at the end. Yeah, go ahead.
जय जिनेंद्र,
Jai Jine.
मैं महेंद्र जैन इंदौर से मैं निवास करता हूँ और मेरा एक उद्योग है छोटा सा जिसमें इंजीनियरिंग इंडस्ट्रीज है। और जैन धर्म को जितना भी मैं पढ़ता हूँ और हमेशा एक समुद्र में कुछ नई चीज ही देखने को मिलती है, और मैं चाहता हूँ कि आपके माध्यम से एक नए आयाम से मैं जैन धर्म को समझ सकूं और अधिक से अधिक आचरण में उतारने की कोशिश करता हूँ। जय जय।
Okay. Jai Jine. Thank you so much. And then we also have someone, P. Jain. If you would take a minute and introduce yourself. And you can unmute. And you may not be able to unmute. Okay. If you can, just come back. And then Amol Jordia, if you would. Amolji, if you would unmute, if possible. Okay. And then otherwise, Lavanya Jain, if you would be able to introduce. And if possible, okay. And then if not, Falguni ji, if you would be able to unmute, and then I'm going to ask Leena ji to introduce herself, and then she will discuss the worksheet with us as and her thought process on that. So Falguni ji, go ahead.
Hi, this is Dr. Falguni Kumat. I am a diabetologist by profession. I stay in Indore, but from Mumbai. And I am also a very good follower of Jainism, but maybe my aspect and your aspect is different. So I'm here to learn more and enlighten my knowledge.
Great.
Thank you.
Excellent. And Ritu ji, if
Jai
ahead.
Jinendra sir.
Jai Jine.
My name is Ritu, and basically I'm from Indore, but we are currently residing in Mumbai. So we have deep faith in Jainism, but what I believe is what we are following is hardly 10% of what our parents follow, or maybe our grandparents followed. So I would like to learn more, and that's the reason I am here. So I can teach my children to have faith in the religion.
Got it. Great. And I'm going to have two people also share with us. Vitika Barjatia, Vitika, and they are with the Jain Path team. They are our Jain Journey Sathis. They will be connecting with you as we do step-by-step learnings in our pilot project of talking about the Jain Path and Jain Journey and Jain Way of Life. So Vitika, would you introduce yourself?
जय जिनेंद्र सबको। My name is Vitika Barjatia. मैं भी इंदौर में ही रहती हूँ, and I'm also a good big follower of Jainism, and I try to imbibe these हमारी जो जैन संस्कार है मैं अपनी बच्चियों में भी डालना की कोशिश कर रही हूँ, लेकिन बहुत प्रैक्टिकल वे में। इसलिए मैं अभी सर से मिली थी और अभी इनको जैन वे ऑफ लाइफ ज्वाइन किया मैंने। तो आगे भी मैं सर के साथ इसी तरह से काम करूंगी और आप लोग के साथ में आपकी असिस्टेंट बन के रहूंगी।
Super. And Abhinav, and then we'll come to Leena ji, and we'll have Leena ji talk about her Jain journey worksheet and what she had done on that. So Abhinav, your
Hello, Jai Jain to all. This is Abhinav Bhatia from Indore. I'm part of this Jain Path journey team, and I'm very blessed to be a part of it and to get engaged with so many people of different, geographical area to understand what their thoughts about Jainism and let's learn more about it with these coming webinars and this session. Jai
Great.
Jain all.
Super. And now over to you, Leena ji. If you would unmute, and Leena ji said that she would be willing to share her thoughts. So as you know, one of the key conversations we had last week and we want to do with everyone is अपन बात कर सकते हैं बहुत, पर अपन को ये सब principles अपनी life में लाना है, और वो जैसे शुरू होता है अपनी life के बारे में, अपने reflections के बारे में. So Leena ji, please share with us your 2 sheets, and we're asking everyone to do this, but go ahead, tell us about yourself.
Hello, Jai Jinendra to all. And
Yes.
first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. For Dr. Jain, I'd like to say that I'm Hiren, Dr. Hiren's sister.
Ah, wonderful.
And I'm based in Ahmedabad, and we are into investment planning. We help people to plan their future, help them to create wealth for themselves. So I have always been interested in Jainism. I do my Samayik regularly, and I want to learn more about Jainism. And I appreciate your effort to provide a platform to all of us to share our views. So I highly appreciate this and would like to take it forward. Yeah.
Sure.
So,
now tell us about you were doing the sheet, and we asked several questions and your experience with them. So 3 things that you are seeking in life. Tell us about those 3 things.
Yeah, see, most important thing in my personal life, I want to identify my shortcomings.
I got it.
Because you know what, I have read everything and I have just realized that purity of soul is the ultimate goal for every one of us. So for purity of soul, unless and until we know our shortcomings, how will we get over them? And it is very difficult, it is very difficult to know yourself. You can criticize others, you can do lots of things, but the ultimate I think it is the crux of everything, that how do you know your shortcomings and how do you get over them? It is, I tell you, very, very difficult.
Good. And we can use our Jain values and Jain principles to do some of that. So that's one. And then you have another goal, which is, go ahead, encourage.
Yeah, professional life, since I'm into investment planning and helping people to set their goals and achieving them in financial ways. So I would like people who have limited means, like who, you all know that there's so little social security in India.
Sure.
So in that way, I would like them to have a retirement corpus so that they can fall back on in their lives.
Right. And so we realize that our life is not all spiritual, that we help people in material ways as well. So that's great. And your third goal that you're seeking?
I want to learn the Pratikraman with the meanings.
Excellent. Very nice. Again, the reason for us doing a lot of this is self-reflection. जब पर्यूषण पे अपना time होता है, अपन को time मिलता है, and this is a structured way and a small group way of discussing. फिर आपने अपने reflections करे in a worksheet. We've share us your experience with some of this. How did you feel about doing this?
About the worksheet?
The reflections. My reflection. The questions that you went through, the mini, you went through the mini one and so forth.
So I found the questionnaire very good. You all have covered all the aspects of it. The minute aspects have been covered very nicely in the questions. And I liked it, the way it has been presented and all.
Very nice. Very nice. So I will say that thank you so much for sharing, and we would really like others to do the same. Why? Because it gives us a quantitative value and number. Yogen Bhai, would you like to add something to this? And then I want to see if people have comments, and then we're going to take a deep dive into a lot of the content and conversations. But if anyone, Yogen Bhai, yourself or others would like to comment.
I found this
Leena
to be...
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank
well,
you.
Leena ji, thank you for sharing. I found this to be so enlightening because, as I mentioned last time, every morning we look at ourselves in the mirror and maybe multiple times a day. This is a way for us to look inside us, inside our mind, inside our soul. And really, if we're going to cleanse it, if we're going to reflect on it, we have to first be able to see it in a nice, objective way. And I believe by far, this is one of the best tools that we have come so far to use.
Great. Other comments and stuff yet to come. We will, for the following week, we will get a sheet. We will be talking about happiness. Sugar Uncles talked about some of that. We will be asking you to put a scale. Where are you in your happiness for your health, your affection, security? This is the core root cause where happiness is. And so you will be getting this to add to your sheet. But before we go into more detail on other conversations, anything else from our group on this further on the worksheet or the Jain Journey sheet that you had? Any comments? Was this helpful? Did other people try it? I know that we've had other people try it. Falguni ji, did you tried it? Your thoughts on it?
Manu,
Yeah, please. Yes, Sugar. Yes.
I'm sorry, I did not have this worksheet. I don't know
Okay.
why.
Yes,
But,
we will
I
share
just,
it with you.
I think we are taking a lot of things for granted when we are asking these questions. You are asking me to grade my happiness at level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I don't know what is happiness, what do you mean by happiness?
So very good point. Actually, we will, that's what we will discuss. So it is actually, we are prompting that very question on helping define happiness. So we'll come to that. We'll come to that in a moment.
Okay.
Yep. So we will define what is happiness and so forth. Okay. So with that, I want to take and begin our conversation further. Today, we will be delving into the philosophy. Yogan Bhai, anything you want to add? Our goal is very clear. Do a 3-minute summary of what we've talked about. Apan kya chahte hain life mein? Happiness, equanimity, moksha. Actually, we'll talk about what, jaise Sugar Uncle ne bola ki what is happiness. We will go into that a bit. And we will do it in the construct of the following. We will realize our goal is that, but we will work through philosophy today, then next week, principles, and the week after, the practices. And we know that Samyak Darshan, Samyak Gyan, Samyak Charit is our approach, and go deeper into the life, soul, and karma theories, and then the triple A's, and then the path. So, Yogan Bhai, would you begin our conversation about the 4 theories? If we were to describe Jainism in its simplicity, the philosophy, Jain philosophy, we believe that we could describe it into these 4 theories. Take us through the first one. You're muted if you want to.
Sorry. I'm in the temple setting and sometimes there's some background noise, so please forgive me. People will first want to know, people on this call and who'll see this webinar, as to where this content that we're going to present, where did it come from?
Good.
And I think it's important just to briefly share with people that it came from, that a lot of it has come from the Tattva Sutra. It's a scripture that all sects of Jainism have strong belief in and faith in. And we are looking at the translation by Dr. Nathmal Tatia. Manoj and I have had a chance to hang out with him when he was teaching here at Harvard for part of a semester. And it does a beautiful job of explaining some of the things that we're going to be sharing with you.
Right, right. So if you look at the Tattva Sutra, the 10 chapters, the chapter 2 talks about the theory of soul. The chapter 5 talks about theory of life, then theory of karma and theory of moksha. We notice that lots of the content that we're talking about all is very well rooted. So in the first chapter, which is the categories of truth, this is what Jainism talks about. It is that the existence of soul, theory of soul, theory of life, theory of karma, and theory of moksha. So in essence, if I have to tell my kids the details about what is in the Tattva Sutra, I basically tell them, look, if you know about these 4 theories, then you will better understand what is Jainism at a philosophical level. But let us go deeper into it. What do we mean by theory of life? So Yogan Bhai, tell us what is meant by theory of life.
Well, it's actually quite easy to understand because if a lot of us have studied sciences, and it's a strong parallelism. As in the science, you have genus, life, phylum, species, as it's defined in there. Similarly, there is a definition also in Jainism, right? So there's living and non-living, and living, you have different types of living.
One second. So this categorization of living and non-living, I mean, why, where does that all come from? Why do we have to divide things up?
Good question. The same reason why we do it in science, it makes communication easier. It gets us to not every time we discuss something, we don't have to go into the details of this. We can say 1 living being, 2 sense being, 3 sense being in Jainism. And it's really to strengthen our communication.
Okay.
And this way we build up on knowledge.
Got it. So you are categorizing the universe, the galaxies, into 2 parts: living and non-living. Jeev and ajeev. Am I correct?
Exactly.
Now,
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Do plants have life?
Absolutely. Both
They do.
according to Jainism and recently, according to science.
Yeah. So how recent was it? Did you know?
No,
In
I don't know, actually.
1901, so and I'll share, 1901, Jagdish Chandra Bose, May of 1901, discovered and proved that plants have life. Before that, we didn't believe in science that plants had life. Now, when we go to different planets, how do we begin to what is one thing that we're looking for in those planets? Any sign of
life?
What is amazing is that 2,500 and more years ago, Jain sages did the same thing. They said the universe, everything is living and non-living. And they even went into mobile, immobile, right? And if you look at how they're divided in Jainism as well, organisms able to move on their own, animals, right? Same categorization. The reason we want to bring some of this up is because it helps the next generation understand that there is a great deal of thought that went into. Not everything about Jain scriptures is perfect in understanding and believing, but with that. So we'll pause with that. If questions or comments from the group, more than welcome. I want to welcome Sheetal and Hitesh Jain, who have joined as well. And so a matter, motion, and others. So
Manoj, this is like right out of sci-fi here when we talk about non-living, where the Jains actually categorize space and time and the ether that's in space. And, to me, that is incredibly insightful that they were able to do that, which so closely matches the way we also think about space and time as almost separate entities.
So one of the things that we want to instill is that we can live together in science and religion in a very compatible way. And we need to find those common denominators in a very reflective way. Okay, now we're going to get into the deeper end. And now we're going to talk about the nature of soul. And Yogan Bhai, this becomes kind of difficult because what is the soul? That's
this is, unfortunately, this is where the parallelism in science stops or greatly is blurred, because there's a concept of consciousness, which is not the place where we want to discuss a lot here. That's a whole different topic. And science takes the path of consciousness, that there are consciousness being, they have certain attributes. And obviously humans are a lot more conscious than other animals, but there's still consciousness. But Jainism goes in a totally different path and has done a far deeper analysis of what is a soul, the actual attributes of the soul. And, I think it's quite enlightening to reflect on that.
Actually, I'll say this. What science has just touched the surface, which is consciousness, which is awareness. And if you look at the 4 characteristics of the soul, science has only covered the top 1. But first, अपन को ये बात अच्छी तरह से समझनी है कि अगर कोई पूछे कि आत्मा क्या है, we can begin with saying कि आत्मा क्या नहीं है. What is the soul not? And that helps us better understand. Now, you may wonder, as a doctor, I can tell you, share a quick story with you. So recently I had a patient who was critically ill, went into respiratory failure, meaning their lungs weren't working, they were aged, and then they went into heart failure. So when they went into respiratory failure, we put them in the ICU and put a ventilator on. When they went into heart failure, we put pacers and we started pacing their heart. Now, I want to ask you, Yogan Bhai, do you think the soul was still there, or the soul wasn't there in that person?
I think the soul was not there.
So this is a hard question. If I stop the ventilator, they would not breathe anymore. If I stop the heart machine, the heart wouldn't be there. And so how does the law define all of this? In America, at least, what they do is they do a brain EEG test. And if there's no brain activity, then they call it brain dead. But अपनी आत्मा है या नहीं है, ये question कई बार आता है. So if I were to say, what about it is that the Atma puts energy in the body. It provides that sense of energy. And it is hard to distinguish when it is there and not there. So that is why I believe that there is an entity like the soul that provides that level of energy, which we are yet to discover. But I would be interested in comments from others as we do this conversation about the soul. Then we'll talk karma and moksha as well. But again, please, this is an open conversation and would be love to have people's opinion on this as well. And I want to welcome Soham also, who has joined as well. But these are the attributes. It is indestructible, genderless, ageless, impenetrable, invisible, unbreakable, uncapturable, intangible, and has no desire, ego. These are something that relate to the mental area, possession, free. And this is the metaphysical, which we will go into a little bit, immortal, pure, and eternal. Any thoughts and comments on this?
Can I come in with a question?
Please.
I was just thinking when you're talking about the soul being desire-free, ego-free. So in some stories I remember from my childhood about the Jeev of Kamat ka Jeev, and doing utsarg on Pashna ji, Bhagwan ji, Janma, so how does that happen? I wonder, so isn't that like a contradiction that that Jeev in various forms came after every successive life and continued till the Jeev was able to be free of that
So that would be, I guess, and I could be corrected, but I would attribute that into the karma, that desire and ego created karmas, and those karmas then led to the next life. And so that's how I would do it. But again, that's somewhat of the way I would look at how the soul is continued on that.
Pallavi,
Yes.
there's
Sugar wants to say
another.
something.
And
I think.
Sugar Uncle can also answer that, please. You were saying something. He may not be there. So
Pallavi,
okay.
there's another way to think about this is there potentially this is a paradigm, a way for us to explain what is happening in life. And in the old days, these paradigms worked really well. These stories worked really well. And, that's another way to look at the whole theory of soul and karma. And it's very hard for us to be able to say that, hey, look, these are paradigms, that there's actually not a karma particle or something. So that's where some thinking may differ, even amongst, some of the Jains.
And I have Sahil also. Go ahead, Sahil, your comments.
Hi, so I had one question and one comment. So my question is, we say it's desireless, but I would love to hear from you, because I was under the impression that the soul, where I don't know if it's linked to the body or not, but the desires to elevate and to get more. So that is, in my mind, a desire, but from here I'm seeing it's desire free. So I would love to your view on that. And the comment that I had is, at least the way that I've understood it, where during my meditation and everything, is that the soul is energy, and I think it was in that next diagram as well. So you
Absolutely.
might not, it may not have the physical attributes, but you can feel it.
You can feel it, exactly. Go ahead, Sugar Uncle, please.
I think this should be the first slide, and the first slide should be the second slide.
Yes.
And we should differentiate between soul, and you talked about Jiv. So that difference is consciousness, and Jiv means lack of consciousness, what you are showing here.
Yes.
Okay, so I think without that, the first slide becomes a little vague, because
You're right.
the idea was coming to my mind is, what is the difference between a rock and a soul?
Yes.
Because a pure rock has all these qualities, except physical, you can break it, but by itself it will not break. So we have to first differentiate between soul, Jiv, and Ajiv. So if you make this as the first slide, then here, the four things you have said. Please, consciousness is different than perception.
Yes.
Consciousness is all four of these, if you ask me. And that's how the consciousness in Jain philosophy is different from the consciousness which the scientists say. So the fourth thing is blissful, we should not use the word sukh.
Yes.
Sukh is a physical experience, while bliss is a mental. So इसमें सुख की जगह आनंद अगर इस्तेमाल करोगे तो अच्छा रहेगा.
Got it.
These are my comments, about this.
No, excellent. And this is why we are presenting this and sharing this in a forum and work in progress. And Sugar Uncle and us are on a team together, working with the Firodia team as well. So the goal is for us to then understand and explain to others, what do we mean by soul? And the soul is and that has darshan, gyan, virya, and sukh. And that's how one is there. And I know that for me, the soul exists, and people may or may not, is because I see out on a patient, I see that there is some level of energy that is there when they are alive, and it's gone when they're passed away, even if I can keep the ventilator and everything pumping. And I look inside myself and I see this. Now, this is the concept of soul from Jain there. We have 3 or 4 more concepts to go through, but again, the purpose in this session is to say that this is the philosophical construct by which we are able to better explain and understand. I want to talk about next the theory of karma. And this gets a little complicated, so fasten your seatbelts. And Sahil, especially, you've already have them fastened while you're traveling, but this gets a little complicated. So now what we're seeing here is theory of karma, and we'll try to explain it as best I can in a block model. Imagine this is the body, this is the soul, these are karma particles. Our mental, physical activities, thought, speech, and action, and they're metaphysical processes. Metaphysical means that you have the physical and the something beyond that are put together. We'll talk about the influx of karmas, intentions, intensities, bonding, modifications, and on. Talk about nimit and purshat and our choice. How do we see these karmas? So it gets really interesting. Okay, so this is how we explain it. This is the soul, karma, and body. And within a soul, there are various karmic particles. Imagine this. How do karmic particles get in? Aswar kaise hota hai? Influx kaise hota hai? It happens through our thoughts, speech, and action, man, vachan, and kai, and the karma comes in. But it's not that simple. There are other modifiers, that elements that change that before it becomes bonded. And what are they? It can come in, but it can also be, if there is no desire, no attachment, that karma can leave. Now, what I'm doing is right now explaining to the theory of karma according to Jainism, and we can tell our kids, take what you like or what you don't like, but let us first understand what the scriptures and the scholars had to say. Then it gets added with intention. Intentions are really important because they determine how that karma is going to be bounded. And your intention could be in the areas of virtues and vices, krodh, man, maya, lobh, or it could be forgiveness, modesty, straightforward. You add that intention level, and then you have an intensity. We talk about how and the level of intensity. Imagine if one is angry, one can be upset, mad, angry, or enraged. There's a level of intensity that adds on. Just like we talk about when you draw a line in water or you make a line in a rock. That's the level of intensity, bonding of the karma based on intensity. And lastly, a more complicated, and I promise you this is the most complicated it gets, it's that nature. The nature of the karma, अपन बोलते हैं कि घाती अघाती होता है, those that relate to the soul, awareness, knowledge, energy, bliss, and those that relate to the body, physical, age, health, and environment. And then you have the quantity, you have duration, and you have intensity. When you add all of these things up, that's when karmic bondage happens. And so in brief, the theory of karma says that you move through this karmic bondage and the karmas get bound to the soul. Jainism believes that karma are material particles that have bondage to the soul. And then the fruition of karmas also comes by a number. And there is another slide that how to prevent there. Now it gets a little bit into depth of how this whole cycle of karma works. And I use this because when I'm explaining to Westerners how karma works, is that the karma inflows, the karma goes into fruition, creates a situation. In that situation, there's a nimit or a catalyst, something that can excite the situation or that can deter, and there is purshat or effort. So all of that, then you have a choice that's there. And this is a cycle. So our thought, speech, and action leads to the karmas that lead to a situation, which leads to a choice. And then again, you begin. So, and that is the karmic cycle put in a simpler explanation form that we know quite well. I am open for conversation, criticism, and and there's more depth in it, but this was a simplistic way of explaining. So thoughts and comments from people, and this is all in part of the Jain Path book and open to people to also read about in more detail. Thoughts and comments on the theory of karma and Jainism. What do people think about it? Yogan Bhai, your thoughts?
Manoj, this is absolutely a beautiful way to explain an extremely complicated flow. But what I really thought was really beautiful is if you go to the last one, all of the doors that you have to open and close, to manage the karmas, the fruition, the thoughts, all the negativities that come. It's not like we are slaves of karma. We have huge amount of leverage, the choice.
Right.
And that's what I think we need to take away. In our lives, we have choices, and the choices are the way we live our life.
Sure. So, and any thoughts and comments, and then we'll get to there. So
I have a question.
Please.
This is about how the karma is attached and bonding to the soul. What about the opposite, where you
Yes.
have the
Release.
removal of karma?
And prevention, and
Yes.
also prevention. So I because of lack of time, I have not included those slides, but they are in part of that Jain Path book, and we can have more conversations in how to remove karmas and how to prevent the incoming of karmas.
So I had a question as well, and you know, we're talking about the soul, and I was having this conversation earlier today with some people, and they said some scientist, he took a photograph of two people sitting next to each other, and you could see the energy field around them. So, you know, our energy field is beyond our physical body, right? Especially when the soul has infinite energy, you see it. But the same photographer or the scientist took a photo of the exact same spot when the two people got off, maybe a few minutes later, and there was still some level of the energy field there. So I was just wanting to understand from a Jain philosophy that, you know, it's not only the presence of somebody, but, you know, even when they're physically not there for a certain period afterwards, it's still there. So maybe when you go and go to a hotel when you're traveling, the karma of, or the energy of that person could still be in there, and that could affect you. And so, you know, it's like, how do you protect yourself and not to be able to absorb that, whether it's good or bad?
Yeah, it's almost like I'm sorry to share this analogy after everyone's gone through the trauma of COVID, but being an infectious disease doctor, I mean, that was the greatest concern, right? People are in an elevator and they cough or they breathe and they leave, but their virus particles are still there. You know, karma works in very unique ways that we don't understand in our present knowledge, though the scriptures guide us. And in fact, I really see karma as this massive cause-effect relationship that we don't completely understand in depth. And almost like taking what every single moment, every single particle, every single activity is being influenced by the previous activity. And so short of that, I don't know in Jainism that it talks about the energy fields and so forth, unless Sugar Uncle, you think that there was something there, please.
You know, to answer Mr. Mehta's question, pure soul has 4 characteristics, as you said: perception, knowledge, energy, and bliss. You know, we all talk of perception and knowledge because that gives us the knowledge, but how do we experience it? And when we talk of experiencing, it's where energy and the characteristic of bliss, they come together. That's the experience. जिसको वेदनीय कर्म भी कहते हैं थोड़ा सा आप ये. So in the situation that he was talking just now, I'm conscious. When I go anywhere, then these things come into play, and they tell me. whether it is good or bad, or whether it is according to my nature or not. Then it's up to me whether I accept them and move forward, or I stay in the present situation and stay aloof. So, these are the ways. So these 4 characteristics that we talk they are extremely important. And the Jain psychology, the karma you talk of, they are based on these 4. The psychology, if you include the karma and these 4 characteristics, then you have the whole Jain psychology. So these 4 characteristics are very important, to plug together.
Got it. Okay. Because of time, and we want to get to a couple of more concepts before we finish. The last theory of moksha, really is the chapter 10 in Tattva Sutra. And what is theory of moksha saying? Journey to happiness, equanimity, and moksha. And we'll talk about this a second. Is first step, do no harm. So I'm trying to do is, maybe I hate to say this, but bring it simplistic, dumb it down, as one would say, but how does one explain these ideas? So first step, as what we see, is do no harm to the self and to others. Be happy and find joy in daily life, an activity of life. Have equanimity, contentment, as Leena ji was talking about. Diminish pains and pleasures with lasting happiness, and attaining moksha, no cycles of rebirth. That's eternal happiness. So if joy and happiness is the daily, it's the present happiness, equanimity is lasting happiness, and moksha is eternal happiness. So let us take a few moments and then go into, Yogan Bhai, on this conversation of the word happiness. Discuss with us this whole idea of the Maslow's hierarchy.
Sure. I don't know about you guys, but the word happiness has so many meanings.
Yes.
And a while back, I don't know in high school or not, but one of the most memorable topics that I remember and was the greatest insight was this Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Yes,
right?
I do
that
too.
we have to meet our physiological needs, our safety needs, right?
Yeah.
And then our stuff that we need. And then there's the final one was self-actualization, right? Where there's some meaning or something in life, right? Do you remember that, Manoj?
I do. I remember this very clearly. And I had that aha moment.
Exactly.
And so let me ask you this. If now, 40 plus years later, you are asked to put all of this together for what you know about Jainism and what you know from life experience, what is your happiness pyramid?
Actually, the happiness pyramid is, to me, family and relationship takes far more precedence than I had originally thought. Health is, of course, really important. Basic financial security and so on, I think we all have. And so we don't think about those things as much. But when you really boil it down, it is the health and some of the basic ones. But once those are met, there's still a major hole. And that is the hole that we believe through Jainism and through good Jain way of life practices and being mindful, we can fill that hole to really have a fulfilling life towards a path of moksha and everlasting happiness.
Okay, so let's talk about happiness. Okay, we live in a life with a roller coaster. Take us through the brain of the roller coaster and what's happening with this.
So what you notice over here on the left-hand side, the first where you see the actual, some event may happen and we're really happy, but we know that, and we all know there's nothing new to this, that those things never last. We get a new car, we get a new phone, and all that.
I'm delighted, and then boom,
boom, right?
And we apologize. We're not taking a lot of time for examples, right? We have a small enough group that we can really deep dive into philosophy. Otherwise, we would be taking detailed examples and so forth. But go ahead.
Exactly. I think people are super smart on this call, and I think they get it. The
Yeah.
one thing that's interesting is that the humans have a far stronger ability to simulate and predict the
it.
future, or to imagine the future. And we
Got it.
always overshoot in our imagination. And
Yeah.
actually that is meant, it can be a happy moment, but it can be really sad moment because we get it wrong mostly, and in our forecast of the future. But then the next stage is, once we do understand the cyclical nature of happiness, we achieve a little bit more contentment where we're not riding the ups and downs of the roller coaster.
Got
And
it.
beyond that is what we are talking about, is mindfulness, understanding of the soul and the karmas and so on,
Got it.
where we actually achieve equanimity.
Got it. So, and all of this is based on the brain as well, the prefrontal cortex, the front part of our brain that makes us humans, the cognition and planning, and then the deep brain, the amygdala, is the brain, emotional part of the brain as well. We won't go into the depth, but let us talk then, what is happiness and that happiness pyramid. First, so what, after much conversation, discussion, is at one level, we have talked about that we need health. We'll talk about, again, what is happiness in a second, but there's an element of health, which is determined by diet, exercise, sleep. And Jain values help that. Second is affection, emotional well-being. You talked about this, Jürgen, how important this is in ways. A third is security, physical security, financial, relationship security. We all need money to survive in today's world. What I'm doing is I'm bringing it down to at a level where it becomes relevant to our kids and to our society and others. We're not talking about those individuals who are ascetics and wanting to achieve moksha, in this lifetime or anytime soon. I'm talking about people who are having to live day-to-day lives. And that's why we want to be bringing these things. What we're also seeking in happiness is a sense of significance, sense of purpose, social community. And lastly, we're looking at equanimity, contentment, peace, harmony. In short, it is health, affection, security, significance, equanimity. If we were to put it in a hussy. Now, here is something that is what has been egging us for the conversation from the beginning. In fact, Sugar Uncle hinted at this. What happiness are we talking about? And if you looked at the worksheets, the Jain journey worksheet, and I'm going to really request each and every one of you to take time, it's only about 10 minutes, to go and do the worksheet. And it'll really help do self-reflection. So we can break up happiness into three different types. And we have to see what is our goal. Present happiness, that is present or short-lived. It is the joy, the pleasure, the taste of chocolate, the smell of rose. Lasting happiness is happiness that's equanimity, tranquility, meditative experience. When I'm sitting and meditating, or when I'm on a hike up on a mountaintop, I feel this type of happiness and experience it. It lasts a longer time. And then we know that eternal happiness, bliss, nirvana, moksha is there. And so what we are looking at is
So Manoj,
having,
I think it's important. We talked about soul, we talked about karma, we talked about how moksha and happiness, but I think we should connect to our AAAs and Jain way of life, right?
Yes.
And
yes,
so
very much.
so this is one way to think about this, where we are, we do want to get to hasi and equanimity, right? But then how do we connect this to our some of the things we talked about, and we'll talk more about in session 3 and 4. It is mindfully practicing these things.
Absolutely. So we in this session have the philosophical construct of what Jainism offers, the 4 theories. We see that our goal being happiness and different types of happiness, and then how we get there are the 3 A's, the triple A's, ahimsa, anekantvad, aparigraha, and the very practices which will fuel and help us achieve that.
Okay, so Manoj, I have a question.
Lots of
Manoj, listen,
conversations.
I have a
but-
question.
Yes,
I enjoy like pani puri. I enjoy, some of the other things and so on. So, I mean, are we these short bubbles of pleasure? Where do all these stand in the larger bubble of happiness?
As long as you understand, this is my opinion, and I would be happy and open to other people. As long as you understand that the pani puri, the smell of chocolate, a taste of chocolate, a ride in a convertible car will only give you present and temporary happiness. If you're looking for lasting happiness, long happiness, that will not do it. And if you're okay with that, I tell my kids, that's perfectly fine, as long as you do not harm others. As long as you do not harm others. That is the key. And that is where this comes from Jain principles. But I would be open. I know we're a few minutes beyond, but it is so interesting and engaging, but would love to hear other people's comments and questions. We've completed with the presentation, and definitely want to have everyone join in for next week, where we will then go more into depth on the triple A's and again, how they relate to us. I apologize if today we were a bit deep on the philosophy part, but I just thought that it was kind of necessary at some point. But comments and questions from others as we finish up. Yes, please. I know Dr. Rajen Mehta is here. We're not able to join in at the early part, but any comments or questions from your end? And you just have to unmute. Yeah, Sahil, go ahead.
I love what you mentioned about happiness and the 3 levels. And I think it's so important to understand the 3 levels, because many times, especially the modern day disease is, when I get ... I will be happy. We're always chasing happiness, but in reality, it can be lasting. And maybe what we're chasing is those little bursts, as you said, whether it's the pani puri or the chocolate or whatever it ends up being. But, happiness is a choice, and
Yes.
we really can decide on how we wish to live and live with those principles and be happy, versus when I get, I will. And that
Got
seems
it.
to be a modern day disease that is really causing lots of
It
strain in
is.
so many different areas of life.
It is, and especially to our kids who are just stressed because they don't know, they have no sense of guidance of what they're seeking. And so before we can teach them, we need to have guidelines and understanding ourselves. And that was our purpose in putting this in black and white. So Leena ji, I would be interested in your comments and
Yes.
others, please.
If
Yes.
others don't have the comments, I would like
Yeah,
to.
please. Yes, Sugar Uncle, please, love to hear you.
We talk of moksha. That is the ultimate objective of everybody. I am a householder, okay? Then I have grandchildren, this and that. Everybody should understand what is the moksha. Can I experience it in my life?
Please.
Okay. So, the way we say is self-reliance. The moment I become self-reliant, that is, I am able to take care of all my needs, physical, mental, and spiritual. That is the objective of my life. Second thing is, we talk of happiness, but what we have talked, we do the reverse. Happiness is absence of unhappiness. Okay, like our friend Mehta was saying, I get up in the morning, or Yogini was saying Golgappas. I become unhappy when I don't get them. So like Maslow's, and this thing you said, the needs, we all want to move up. So whenever needs are not met, we feel unhappy. So when our needs are not met, we feel unhappy. And that is pain. And when the needs are met, pain is gone, and then we become happy. So this is the way we are going, in the same way we are basing this thing, Maslow's also.
Yes.
And then we are talking about this unmet needs.
And so we talk about that in our next sessions. We continuum of needs and then the wants.
Yes.
Right. That is this whole culture of wants that we have created.
And
so we
the one thing, we talked in the beginning, which I said when you had that soul desires. We have desires. This is our inherent nature. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, why is he having a hierarchy? Why do you want to move up? Like Yogendra said, family, this and that. But after that also there is a higher level. So some of us want to become Bill Gates. And when I become Bill Gates, then I want to move up something else, President of the United States, like Rockefeller did. So there is a hierarchy of needs, and that is the driving force in us. And we are shamans. So all our life is based on this thing. So we cannot say desire is for physical comforts, and the same need for spiritual, you talk of moksha. So I think these concepts we should bring in. Otherwise, the message will get diluted, This is my feeling.
So, very much so. So we've gone beyond our time, but Yogen Bhai, if you would take us into Namokar Mantra, we'll finish up and meet again next week. So please take us through a Namokar Mantra.
Yes, and before we finish, a reminder to everybody that please do work on your worksheets, because that is quite insightful. So let's start again, please. A good smile on our face. Back straight. Take a nice deep breath. Inhale. Hold. And exhale. And this is a great way to transition. Now let's do Namokar Mantra, one Namokar Mantra. Om Namo Arihantanam. Om Namo Siddhanam. Om Namo Aidyanam. Om Namo Vachayam. Om Namo Loe Sibsam. Eso Panchanamokaro Sava Bhava Pranashno. Mangala Savesa. Parva Moy Mang. Om Shanti Shanti.
Jai Jain, everyone. We
Jai
will see
Jain.
you
Take
next
care,
week.
everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Enjoy your Dasalakshan, Paryushan.
Jai.
Good night. Thank you very much for a very enlightening session.
Thank you so much for sharing yours.
You spend a lot of time in artwork and creative.
Oh yes, it's good fun.
Very good. Okay, sir.
Okay, take care.
You too.